Welcome back to the Money Show here on Arise News. The long-standing agitation for the separation of the office of the Attorney General of the Federation from the office of the Minister of Justice just resurfaced again. A fresh move to separate the office of the Attorney General of the Federation from that of the Minister of Justice has passed second reading in the House of Representatives here in Nigeria. The bill, when passed, will seek to amend Section 150 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, which provides for the office of the Attorney General of the Federation, who shall be the Chief Law Officer and also a Minister of the Federation. By this provision, anyone appointed into the office plays the roles of a Chief Law Officer and at the same time Minister. The following perceived undue political interference as alleged, there have been agitations for the separation of the two offices. Well, from our Abuja studio, to discuss this and some other national issues is constitutional lawyer Kayode Ajulo. Kayode Ajulo, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Show.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
I'm grateful. Thank
you. Good to have you again on the Morning Show. Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, you must have listened to the introduction. This attempt by the House of Representatives to separate the office of the Attorney General of the Federation from that of the Minister of Justice. And the argument by Mohammed Munguno, who proposed the bill, which has now passed the second reading stage, is that, look, there's a lot of political interference involved when you have the Chief Law Officer also serving as the Minister of Justice. The argument is not new, but it looks like the present House of Representatives has brought it up again. What's your take on this? Do you think that the two offices should be separated?
Well, let me first start by commending our legislator, particularly the federal legislator, for what they seem to be doing recently. We can see a robust way, particularly in the agitation, to quickly make some laws for Nigeria, and I think we need to thank them for that. However, when it comes to the issue of the office of the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice, I think that there is some misconception of that office. And they seem to overlook the importance of that office and why it is merged together as it is. I know people may be sentimental and trying to say that because of the political, being that it will be under the whims and caprice of whosoever that appointed it, so we need to separate it. But by the time you look at the inner workings of that office, then you understand that it is of no issue and we need not waste our time over verification of that two offices. And I say this from the point that we need to really understand that office. This is an office that has been created since 1479 in England. And we have plethorias of authority that try to explain the importance of that office and why it should be that way. And I've gone through the argument for the reason. The only argument is to the fact that because being the Minister of Justice and Chief Law Officer of the Federation, it has been that whosoever that is occupying it always seem to be the ministers of Chief Law Officer of government and seem to tilt to the ways of to the ways and caprice of government. But this is not the issue. I think instead of thinking of trying to unificate these two offices, what should be in the mind is how to regulate the office, how to ensure that whosoever that is occupying that office do what is expected of that office. That is his conscience and to the point to issue of law. Like as you can check, this is an office that out of all the ministers we have in Nigeria, that is the only office created by the Constitution. And that is to place premium on the importance of that office. Now to raise that we want to divide it, the question is this. The only argument is to the point that it to be controlled by the government. But let me ask you a question. Even if at the end of the day of dividing the office, having the office of Attorney General one side and the Minister of Justice, who tells you and why do you believe that the same thing will not be done? But I believe if we strengthen the institution, that whosoever that occupies it has a way and understand these workings, nothing will happen. And let me set an example. As a lawyer, irrespective of whosoever will be your client, you are duty bound not only to your client, but to the society, and if the matter is in court, to the court and to the courts of justice. That is how it is. And I believe all lawyers, we know that. And that is why you see that if any lawyer should fall out of the line, disciplinary committee, and I need to say that law professionals, one of the most regulatory bodies that allow everybody to toe the line. So the question we should be thinking of is how are we going to ensure that whosoever that occupies the office will do what is expected of him in his conscience and with accordance to the law. Now, some people will tell you, the question, I can give some examples. The Office of Auditor General, the Office of Accountant General, Minister of Justice, Governor of Central Bank, the Inspector General of Police, they were those from the rank. They are not supposed to be apolitical, but today, you and I can know what it is. So dividing anything, I think, is just waste of time.
Thank you, Mr. Ajulo, but I don't want that to be a rhetorical question. I'd like you to answer that question of how the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, if, as you say, those roles are not split, how can they be compelled, because they do have to be compelled, to fulfill their duty to the Constitution as guardians of the Constitution? You have talked about a conscience, but you know, the whole plethora of laws that exist show that human beings and our conscience cannot really be relied on, neither can any kind of innate sense of duty. So how can that role be safeguarded if you're saying the solution is not to split it in practical terms?
Well, thank you very much. And that's what I said. I mentioned something about regulation. I will have so much love a situation where our lawmakers will try to make a law that will serve as a guide, as a protocol, as a procedure, and the way the Attorney General should go in performing his tasks. I mentioned some time ago, during the time of reappointing the incumbent Attorney General, some group of people wrote a petition and submitted the petition with the Legal Practitioner Disciplinary Committee, in which the Attorney General was called, in which it was, I believe, was probed, and at the end of the day, whatever may be the matter, I may not know, but today he still remains the Attorney General of Nigeria. And apart from that, the training as a lawyer, I believe every lawyer that what he saw, know what is expected of him, knows when to differentiate between following politics between following principle. And I dare say this, that office, by the time you looked at what is expected, the duties, the functions and powers, expected you to follow principle, not politics. And that is why I believe that if I raised that issue before that, what matters more is to strengthen the institution. Like, for example, let me say the issue of filing noli prosequi. All that is required today is for an Attorney General, from Attorney General of Federation to go to court to say, yes, filing noli prosequi on this matter. That means that the case should be abated. We don't want the case. The case should not go on again. But I want to see a situation where there will be a regulation, maybe a body of rules that will tell this is the way and manner the noli prosequi should be filed. This is the condition that must be met before the noli prosequi are filed. All this, I think this is what will help the Attorney General. Mind you, Attorney General is the chief law officer of the Federation. And many people forget many things. That in the office of Attorney General of Federation, we have the Solicitor General of Federation, who is a technocrat, a civil servant that move within the rank to become that. And his office is so straight, and that's why you may not know. I may be saying this because I have had the opportunity to work in that Ministry of Justice and work under an Attorney General of Federation. I know that in any issue coming before the Attorney General, particularly when it comes to issue of law, the first thing the Attorney General would do is to minute it to the Solicitor General of the Federation to advise on what to be done. And this is the way to really clear it. And everybody, I can see what the distinguished the honorable lawmaker has been saying that it's happening in United Kingdom, forgetting that our system in United Kingdom is different from here. The Lord High Chancellor, now he's called Lord Chancellor, is different from Attorney General. And because of that, it's said that this is a parliamentary system of government, where you have the cabinet, where we have the parliament. And this one is different. But here we are practicing the presidential system of government. And we need not mix both together. And I think that is why we're having all this confusion. That's why you cannot even know which of the constitution we have in this country. Once when you look at it one side, it will look as if a federal system of government. You look at it the other side, you see more people to look at more of unitary system of government. But we need to do that, because I asked this question. Let's assume that it is divided today. We have two separate offices. Tell me, what is the guarantee that the same government influence will not be there? But what matters most is that by the training, as a lawyer, today, as I am a lawyer, Kayode Ajulo, barrister and solicitor of Supreme Court of Nigeria, even if you brief me, despite the payment, better pay me to do your brief. All I need to do is to uphold the law, and whatsoever the advice I will be given will be in tandem with the law. And if I should fall out of line, anybody can report me to disciplinary committee, and I'll be dealt with.
Mr. Ajulo, I think the issue here that the public seems to be bringing up is the fact that when we're speaking about regulation, without the two offices being split, it's basically kind of like asking them to regulate themselves, which means, in other terms, that we are not seeing regulation. Hence, the entire idea behind splitting is therefore to ensure that we can now have some sort of regulation. So it's some sort of a solution that's being posed. But what we're seeing here is that you mentioned confusion, and there's confusion because there's an executive that on a number of occasions seem to believe that that they're sort of above the law. And that's something that needs to stop. At the end of the day, an executive always has veto power in certain instances, but the executive is acting beyond that way too regularly. But let's speak about that veto power anyway, because it seems as though they're using that power whenever they want. But when should an executive use veto power? When does an executive actually have veto power?
Well, I think I've answered that earlier, that when it comes to regulation, I want to believe that the greatest regulation of any lawyer is his training and his oaths, taking that oath of office, that I will do justice to all manners of men without any whatsoever the interest. And I believe that oath is even, I think, the office of Attorney General has more premium hope and expectation. And that's why I said that as a lawyer, you go through some training. And mind you, by the time you check, for you to be an Attorney General Federation, you must have spent 10 years in practice. And that means that within these 10 years, you must be able to know your left from your right. And it is expected that doing that, you know what to do at all times. I believe most of the time, politics always sometimes do take hold of some of them.
Yes, on that note, let's take a short commercial break. When we return, the conversation with you will continue. We'll be right back. Thank you. Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Still with us in our Abuja studio is constitutional lawyer Kayode Ajulo, who has been helping us to take a deeper look at the issue of the proposed separation of the two offices of Attorney General and Minister of Justice, which at the moment constitute one office under the Nigerian Constitution. Now, Kayode Ajulo, I got your point about, regulations, but my concern is, how do you enforce those regulations? Considering the fact that the present system, under the present system, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice is basically answerable to the President of Nigeria and not to any other body. And when you talk about conscience, well, conscience and the training of a lawyer, I'd like you to just take a look at the Attorneys General that we have had since 1999 or even beyond, and try to do an assessment in terms of those you see that may have conducted themselves according to training and conscience, and whether indeed you agree that there have been some kind of abuses in that office.
Well, thank you very much. Like I've said earlier, we need to get something clear. When it comes to the office of the Attorney General, apart from every other ministers of the Federation, his own is quite different. We need to get this one that the Attorney General is not answerable to the government or to his appointed. Is answerable. That is why the Constitution creates his office separately, and that is why I happen to be the only one that is so created. And he is sensible to his training, to his competence, and his conscience. And that is what it is. And if you ask me some question, though, with one age, there's this name, Teslim Elias, was one of the Attorney General that conducted himself in that office to the extent that he was elevated to the Supreme Court. And we talked about the likes of Prince Bola Ajibola. Is still around. You need to check his antecedents. It's so superb. Check the Olu Onagurua, Abdullahi Adamu, this man, I think from Kogi State, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. These are the Attorney Generals that you can say, well, irrespective of the fact that they've been appointed, they still ensure they uphold the law and they follow their conscience and follow their training, and they act so much as a real chief law officer and a lawyer. And these are the people. And mind you, there are some Attorney General of this country today that after their tenure, they were dealt with. The likes of Andwaka, you know what happened to him. And just some days, some few days ago, we had decided the unpleasant news, let me use the word because being a lawyer, of course, it has to be unpleasant to me, that the former Attorney General of Federation has been arrested in Dubai, and we're thinking of extraditing him. And I just mentioned some other, there's check and balances. We have a way of doing it. Like I said, irrespective of anybody, whatever anybody may say, law profession has a way of regulating itself, and that is why you know what you are doing, and you need not fall out of line. And once you are done that, you've done that, you are dealt with. The only thing is this: until when you have people who are complacent, when you have group, civil society, they need to ensure that the right thing is done. And that is why you can see what happened with this issue, this issue of Juret 2 or 3 days ago. The Attorney General, you can see, has come out to say, look, this is what we are going to do. That is what is expected of Attorney General of Federation. Up to now, you can see the Attorney General of Federation, despite the fact that he is a minister of this government, is yet to even take side with the government. That is the way Attorney General ought to behave. Because as it is, you are the embodiment of the rules and regulation of that country, and you need to do that. I've had several cases of an Attorney General trying to tell the president, this is not it should be. You've remembered there was a time, I need to take you to one thing that I know as one is personally involved. There was a time in this country when the president of the nation was about to dismiss two judicial officers. I think Justice Opene and Justice Adeniji. These are the Justice of Court of Appeal. You need to see the memo of the Attorney General. Even it's as if directing the president, this is what you should do. You cannot do it. And that is how Attorney General should act and should behave. We have plethora. I don't need to bore us with that. But one thing that is so clear is this: separating, purificating, or whatever name you call it, the two offices, I think will not achieve anything. What matters most is to keep our eyes on the ball, to ensure that our law is obeyed, our law is maintained, and the Attorney General should know that, look, I have a greater obligation, not to my appointer, but to the Constitution and to the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
And yet, Mr. Ajulo, this agitation continues. That tends to indicate that there's a problem or the perception of a problem. I want your comments on that. Obviously, you've made it abundantly clear that you stand against the splitting of these two offices. But I want you to comment on the fact that what is the motivation for this agitation? Is it not a lack of trust? Because abuses are met with silence. You referred just now to the rather lukewarm and somewhat belated comment given by the Attorney General of the Federation. But during his Senate screening, he stood there in front of the whole country and said that national interest is superior to the rule of law. That should not come from an Attorney General and being screened to continue in that office. That's my first question. And secondly, if I may ask a second question, you referred earlier to some sort of protocol procedure that the National Assembly could pass. Would you like to see that as a constitutional amendment? Because you've made it clear that you are against amending Section 150 to reflect a split. But are you against amending perhaps Section 174 to sort of widen that clause about what the duties of the Attorney General are?
Well, thank you very much. I pray you understand me properly. what I'm talking about, that regulation, that it should be more of a subsidiary law that will try to help the Constitution. The Constitution as it is perfect, particularly when it comes to the appointment and the office of the Attorney General of Federation and the Minister of Justice. But what I'm saying is that to help, at least to try to create some part of procedural ways of the way the Attorney General will so act. I think we may have one law that may really help that. But to alter what we have in the Constitution, I don't think there's no need for that. The way it is, the Constitution has made this so, and those that draft that Constitution, they have their own reason why they made it as it is, and that is why only if you can see maybe in United Kingdom, Kenya, and one of these rainbow countries in Africa, that is why we have this issue of splitting it, and like I think I've explained that, the reason why it is so. Now to the other question that maybe because of the agitation seemed to be is popular. There are some times that something may be popular, but by the time you look, by the time you probe deeply, you notice that it's born out of ignorance. I said this some minutes ago that maybe one of the reasons I'm explaining is that I have been opportune to serve in the office of the Attorney General as one of state attorney. And maybe that one really gave me a little privilege to know the workings of that area. This is a place, this is an office that where you have several directors, director of legal, director of solicitor, DPP, litigation, all of them, core professionals of over 15 years, working and advising the Attorney General. And with what I know of, all this advice the Attorney General has always taken it. And it has been that way. And it is for us to look for a way how to deepen that to ensure that this country it is served properly. And to the other question, I may not really understand what you're trying to say. But on the issue of the regulation, I think I've placed so much on that. Then now you mentioned the issue of national. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Ajulo, just to round up the conversation then, just to get some more clarity. First of all, I don't think we can really praise the Attorney General of the Federation for coming out to speak on the matter of show arrest so late in the day. But let's speak about the separation of powers then. And let's just go back to the very basics. If these offices are not split, we cannot deny that that genuinely means that the executive do have more power than they should, because it is still a political appointment. So what does this then mean for the separation of powers model that is supposed to be the framework for Nigeria's polity and our governance as a whole?
Well, if I understand your question properly, we are talking of separation of power, and the separation of power is as lined them by the Constitution, and which we will continue to discuss. But as it is, whatsoever may be the issue, what matters most is to continue to discuss this issue, to continue to see and to ensure that whatever we are doing is in accordance to the rule of law, particularly in our Constitution.
Thank you very much, Kayode Ajulo. Thank you.